Okay, so I maybe said that I was gonna do one of these every week and then didn't do one for the long time. My bad. In my defense, okay, I went out of town. Okay, that was like a month ago. But I went out of town, and then when I came back, life was really hectic. Okay, I had a lot going on, still have a lot going on. Travis and I literally have something to do every weekend through the middle of December. Like there's so much going on. There's so much happening. I'm sorry, but I am back. I am back with more extra history. What up, Ho Biscuits? It's your girl Skitten, back at it again. We are continuing with our series on Wu Zetian. I have seen a couple of you guys also recommend the Ziron. Hold on, let me look up her name. Yeah, Ziron J. Zhao. I hope I'm saying her name right. Suggesting her video on Wu Zetian. So I will actually probably check that out once we are finished with this series. So keep your guys, I was like crossing my fingers, but I was gonna say keep your eyes peeled for that one. We are on part 3, Bloody Ghosts and Riots. I'm interested to see where Wu Zetian goes from here. I'm super excited to get into this video. Hope you guys are doing well, staying safe and sanitized. And without further ado, let's go ahead and get started.
Chang'an, China, 657 CE.
All right.
Wu Zetian, Empress of China, sees faces in the mirror behind her. She drops the bronze tray she's carrying. And slowly, she turns. It is them. Again. Both of them. Empress Wang and pure consort Xiao, floating above the floor. They have no legs, and blood blossoms on their robes. Their hair, long and unkempt, hangs disheveled, and bruises mark their throats.
Damn.
They say nothing. They never do. They don't need to. Their eyes say it all. How she had them banished to the interior of the palace, confined in a windowless room with only a slit for food, unable to wash or clean for months. These two former rivals walled up together. And when the emperor had stumbled upon them and considered granting them mercy, Wu had sent her men to give them 100 lashes before hanging them. And now they appear to remind her of a terrifying fact. Where she is, they once were, and it'll only take one slip for her to join them.
I personally feel like a ghost staring at you in like silent judgment / condemnation would honestly be way worse than a ghost that slaps shit around and throws shit around. Like, honestly, because like I do not like to be judged and I do not like feeling watched. Like do you not like my makeup? Does my makeup look bad? Am I cooking this wrong? Like, what do you mean? Is it the outfit? The outfit makes me look fat. Does it? I felt like the outfit made me look fat, but the way you're looking at me, I feel like it do. You get it? Y'all understand. Y'all feel me.
When Wu was declared Empress Consort in 655, it wasn't just the two dull points on the love triangle that had to go. She had a whole list of enemies to deal with. Chief among them were those advisors her husband, Emperor Gaozong, had inherited from his father. Older aristocrats who'd fought and founded the Tang Dynasty and tried to prevent her becoming empress. And Wu's supporters, mostly young scholars that gained their positions through the public examination system, absolutely hated them. But at first, she waited. And the moves she did make were subtle. For instance, enemies were not punished, but promoted. Just to posts that did not suit them, or which were far away from court. And then, stuff started to happen. Like the secret police catching officials in secret societies, and torturing them until they gave up the names of their treacherous co-conspirators. Names that, inevitably, were those of officials who had opposed Wu. The real watershed moment, though, came when one of the old guard officials tried to hit back. See, he had learned that Wu's supporter, Cat Li, aka the Sword in the Smile, had bribed a beautiful prisoner out of jail to be his mistress.
Hey man,
of course,
you gotta do what you gotta do for a pretty lady. You gotta do what you gotta do for a pretty lady. He said, that's a baddie right there. I don't care what crime she committed. That's mine. I love that. Like, that's not... I do not condone criminal behavior. But that's hilarious.
Of course, this official took this report of corruption straight to the emperor. But by the time Wu was done, Cat Li was cleared of charges, and it was the whistleblower who was exiled.
Damn.
That kicked off the full purge.
Okay.
Through gossip, insinuation, and half-true reports from secret police, the emperor's powerful advisors were exiled, and most chose to take their own lives.
Damn.
Often, though, if they were hesitant, their captors very nicely helped them. In fact, sometimes the emperor would call someone in to answer for charges, only to find out that,
They were
wouldn't you
dead.
know, on the way, they had confessed to being a super traitor and were immediately executed.
Right.
Hate when that happens. Soon, even Emperor Gaozong's previous heir was stashed at a border post, and Wu's eldest son named Crown Prince. But these court battles did take a psychological toll on Wu.
Right.
She felt particularly sharp guilt over the deaths of Empress Wang and Consort Xiao, evidenced by the sources claiming she dreamed nightly that their ghosts haunted her dreams, mutely staring at her in their soiled robes. Supposedly, this was the impetus for Wu and Gaozong to move the capital from Chang'an, instead resituating it in Luoyang,
Damn.
200 miles to the east.
She said, I can't take this no more for real.
And for the next 50 years, Wu would rule there, only rarely going back to Chang'an. Though when she did return, she stayed in a brand new palace she ordered constructed. Now, of course, there were other reasons to move the court other than the spooky, scary skeletons in Wu's closet. Luoyang was better tied into trade networks, and it was
Right.
closer to Korea, where Chinese armies were fighting to keep a foothold on the peninsula.
Great strategy. Okay, we could argue that this was a strategic move. I would just also like to commend her for getting the fuck out of Dodge, okay? Because a lot of people in like horror movies, they find out that their place is haunted and then they just stay there anyway. They're like, oh, well, I'll try to get rid of the ghost. No, the ghost was there before you. You get out. You leave. Okay? This is my house. Although, to be fair, with how expensive houses are nowadays, yeah, you might just have to call that priest.
And it was closer to Korea, where Chinese armies were fighting to keep a foothold on the peninsula,
Okay.
just across the Yellow Sea.
Okay.
Meanwhile, imperial armies were also battling Turkic tribes in Central Asia to keep control of the Silk Road and expand Chinese territory in the area. This was the time that the Tang was at its greatest territorial extent.
Right.
And the strain was starting
There's
to
a lot
show,
going on.
especially on Emperor Gaozong.
Yeah.
Always sickly, the emperor began to experience constant headaches and vision loss that stole his ability to read.
Migraine.
At first, this was just a nuisance, but then in 660, Gaozong collapsed and was unable to rise, with doctors attending to his bedchamber.
Goddamn.
Wu, remaining behind a curtain of beads and pearls, as was customary for women in official settings, looked on in horror as the doctor suggested bleeding Gaozong.
Oh, shit.
At this, she flew into a rage, screaming that it was treason, and if anyone were to cut the emperor, they would die. Stopping only when Gaozong told her they were only trying to do their jobs. Then, when the bleeding appeared to help, a distraught Wu emerged from the curtain in a stunning break of protocol and, apologizing through tears, gave the doctor's jewels off her own arms. Now, her reaction here can be read a number of ways. After all, this man was not only her access to power, but also the one shielding her from enemy reprisal.
Exactly.
Yet it also may speak to Wu's genuine affection for Gaozong, with the pair being unusually close. Though even that was turned against her, as due to Wu's frequent time in the bedroom with her husband, she was sometimes cast as a sort of vitality-sucking sex vampire, draining his male power and making him sick.
Hey man, look, it's crazy when you like your husband and you actually want to spend time with him. A lot of y'all can't relate.
Anyway, finding it difficult to manage the constant flow of petitioners and officials wanting decisions, Gaozong began to rely heavily on Wu for advice.
As he should.
She would sit beside him behind her modesty screen and whisper what rulings he should make. This burden removed, he started to attend less and less to everyday tasks. And through her husband, Wu began to make policy.
Hell yeah.
She banned women from burlesque performances and reorganized the ranking system of imperial concubines.
Why?
Removing references to gender so it was on par with the rank system for palace officials.
Oh,
Now,
okay.
some say this was to prevent any concubines from outshining her. But others argue it was an acknowledgement that women of the harem were not just pretty playthings, but performed a vital role in the civil
And
service.
maintaining
Most
everything.
crucially, however, she managed the war in Korea, choosing generals and launching a new expedition into northern Korea.
Damn.
But while Wu was the power behind the throne, her position was precarious. Perhaps that's why, after Gaozong recovered sufficiently to take back over some of his duties, she then engaged the Taoist sorcerer to help her control the emperor through magical means.
Oh, shit.
This, of course, was the same crime that had led to Empress Wang and Consort Xiao's fall.
Exactly.
And indeed, when Gaozong found out, it was the closest their ghosts came to getting revenge. The order of demotion and expulsion was in Gaozong's hand when Wu heard of it and came running to his chambers, begging him not to go through with it. Once again, she worked her charm.
Damn.
And in the end, it actually was the officials that drew up those papers that ended up on the scaffold.
What?
That was the last major resistance to Wu's rule over Gaozong.
Hey, that's crazy. Like, obviously we have to take some of these with a grain of salt, right? But just like imagine you're like, yeah, finally got this bitch out of here. But you didn't. But you didn't, actually. And now, by the way, you're dead.
As his health took another downswing, the emperor once again increasingly leaned on Wu to make decisions. Soon, when officials came to him with policy issues, his first question was if they'd asked the empress.
Right.
And given
What did my
Gaozong's
wife
decline,
say?
it was clear that Wu must have been thinking about the realities of succession. Her husband was slowly dying, and her sons still relatively young.
Yeah.
She needed to secure her position, and decided that she would use religion to do it. Wu began pushing for her title to be upgraded, for if her husband was the son of heaven, ruling via divine favor, surely she then was the Heaven Empress.
Oh, wow.
Lunar New Year, 666 CE, Mount Tai. It is the sacrifice to heaven and earth. A set of rituals so expensive, they've not been conducted for 600 years.
Woo!
For a full day, the pale Gaozong does what emperors have done before him, making offerings to his imperial ancestors, walking to the summit, and burying 2 enormous jade slabs there to report his dynasty's success to heaven. The cold mountain wind carries incense smoke away into the sky. Ambassadors from every corner of the Empire watch,
like,
along
geez
with shackled
Louise.
prisoners of war, whose spirits soon will be ritually offered to the gods before they're released. And that's when the tradition changes. Because when those rituals are complete, and the procession returns to the mountain base, the sacrifices to Earth begin. For centuries, the Emperor conducted these as well, but not today. Just before the rituals begin, Empress Wu pointed out that while heaven is suffused with male yang energy, the earth was a female yin element, and therefore must be conducted by women. Gaozong and his court leave, clearing the area, as the Heaven Empress Wu and her court ladies share a symbolic banquet of food and wine with the earth, usurping the most powerful ritual in all of Chinese religion.
Wow.
And Wu would not stop there, because the Heaven Empress would only grow in power. And soon, the heavens, the earth, and even the monasteries of the Buddha would be within her grasp.
Hell yeah.
And
I love that. I love that. I support women's rights, but I also support women's wrongs. Women's wrong. You know what I'm trying to say. I support her, okay? Her scheming, manipulative, potentially magical wiles, social climbing her way to power. I love it. Turn this shit against these guys. Like, do it. Do it. I love when the patriarchy works for us. I love it. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to leave your reaction requests and your recommendations down in the comments below. And other than that, peace out, Hope Biscuits. It's Skittin' Lit.